dog, Bonnie. I want you to be on my team.
Let this be a reminder to you all that this organization will not tolerate failure.
Touchdown!
History is mine!
Bring it on, baby!
What is your major malfunction, numbnut?
Championship.
Holy cow!
Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? Are you kidding me? Playoffs? Isn't that fucking rule?
Hey man, this time we're gonna do it my way. Go ahead. Make my day.
All right, welcome back. You're tuned in and listening to Bat Talk with Sharona. I am your host. My name is Sharona. As always, I thank you for tuning in. Up next is Lisa London. We're going to be talking some fantasy football. Well, we can't let Lisa get in here without talking about her Miami Dolphins. Ryan Tannehill, I like to give her a little bit of a hard time. So, Lisa, welcome back. It's been way too long.
I know, and everybody gives me a hard time about the Miami Dolphins. It's just too easy not to.
Well, you know, it's a big year for Ryan Tannehill. We'll get to that later, but I have to ask you, did you watch the game last night?
I did. And
I've been ranting about it a little bit.
Yeah, I was listening to you and Jeff, so yes. Yeah.
I'm mad, girl. I'm
mad.
Yes,
I totally get the argument. Yes, he's big, he runs, blah, blah, blah. But that was just, I mean, they were just hammering the guy. And it was, you're right. If it was Tom Brady and he, you sneezed in his general direction, you would be fined and thrown out of the game.
It's ridiculous. But yeah. Anyway, but fantasy football. It was great to see. Yeah, it was great to see C.J. Anderson get back in the groove, and he was a guy. I had him last year. I got burned, and when I get burned like that, I don't return to that well. Or very rare that I return to that well. The C.J. Anderson fantasy owners have to be pretty happy.
Oh yeah, no. I think I have him in King of the Hill. It turns out, yeah. Last night as football season started, I get to remember all the places where I've drafted a player. Like, oh wait, so I think maybe it's King of the Hill. I have him. I need all the help I can get in that league. So he looked great. He looked great yesterday. Hopefully they'll keep, for the C.J. Anderson owners, they'll keep it up and they won't do what they did last year where they were like, okay, we're just kidding, we're going to put Ronnie Hillman in now. But obviously Ronnie Hillman's gone, but now, and Booker fumbled, but Capri Bibbs is still sitting around there. By the way, just fun little random fantasy note. I picked up Capri Bibbs in IDP leagues where you get like return yards and special team stuff for depth, where if Anderson goes down, you have Bibbs who may be in it, and in the meantime, he's playing special teams. That was his thing on how he stayed on the team. So he might get you tackles. If you're like desperate, he could get you at least a few points with some tackles or some return yards. So that's just a little, if you're like desperate and you're in a deep league, you're like, I need a body. He's a body. He has a pulse.
Yeah, I was happy to see C.J. Anderson and see him just outside of the other issues that were going on there, and it's DeMarcus Ware. I think I called him. It's been a morning for me because I was so mad last night I couldn't go to sleep, and I knew I had to get up and do this show. And of course, I'm always hype after the games anyway, and that kind of contributes to it. But the Denver defense, and that's one of the things that just makes it even worse to me, is that you're good anyway. And it's the same thing that bothers me about the Patriots and the cheating there. You can win this game anyway.
Yeah, well, okay. First of all, I have to admit that I'm wearing a Deacon Jones T-shirt right now. So Nobody head slapped anybody. So I was sadly disappointed there weren't head slaps handed out. But yeah, no, they are good, and they didn't need to. The hits were just, I mean,
it was ridiculous.
Why? I hate when you see players go and try and ruin another player. Like, that's your job. You have to. Why would you want to be that player? Yeah. How do you do that to somebody who you may be working with in the future, or just even if you're not, ruin another person's life over something? You can still make that tackle. Yeah, it was.
I lost
rough.
So much respect for the Broncos last night. I'm just being real right now. I lost so much respect for them, and and I know the NFL is. I know the hypocrisy. I know all of that, but you just have to wonder how much more can the NFL do, and fans still consume it.
Well, and here's the thing. As much as I don't like the hits the Broncos put on, and I don't, they're fired up in there in a game. What aggravates it is the fact that they're putting those hits in and they're doing it, and the refs are green lighting it, which is really where the problem is. Because if the refs had come in and started throwing flags, he wouldn't be crawling around on the ground in the last minute of the game, because at that point, getting those yards would have been enough to at least make them alert that no matter how they wanted to play, they have to stop playing that way. It was kind of like the Josh Norman, Odell Beckham fight last year. If the refs had gotten in earlier and told them to knock it off, the two of them wouldn't have escalated to the point of being ridiculous. Yeah. So
I completely agree.
I just think that you have this standard for quarterbacks and what you want to do to keep them safe, and I get it. Cam's awesome. He's amazing. He can run. He's huge, but still, like, his brain's not magical. When you get hit that hard, it's still going to have an effect, and you need to treat him like every other quarterback.
Well, and it goes back to fundamental fairness, and I completely agree with you. Nothing, if you follow me on social media, if you listen to this show, nothing gets me riled up worse than injustice and people being treated unfairly. And Cam has been treated unfairly since he came into the league. That's just the bottom line. Right. And I completely agree with you. It is completely the officials' responsibility to be the gatekeepers. Right. And that was a complete and utter failure. It was a breakdown of their responsibility last night.
Yeah. Now, I have a feeling unless things have changed from last year, remember I had to read the league rules last year as far as how they do these things. So since it's a neutral body that's doing the fines, I'm going to guess that there's going to be a bunch of fines handed out. Like that's going to go through independent review. Unfortunately, when you're talking about players who make as much as they do, that's like somebody being like, "Here, Lisa, here's a $3 fine." Yeah. Okay, well that's okay. Like, I got to get 20 of those before I start thinking about changing my behavior. So it doesn't have the same effect as here. You just cost yourself the game because you gave them 50 penalty yards because you kept doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it can't. First of all, it can't go back and give the Panthers a win that they probably would have gotten had the rules been enforced. And second, it doesn't give Cam 10 years back on his life. It doesn't take away all the punishment, as you mentioned. It doesn't take away all the punishment that his brain endured.
Right.
You can't restore those things, and it doesn't restore the league's credibility.
No. And that's the thing. And I think Carolina came out of the gate looking good, and Cam was just looking beastly coming out. And so they ended up just, ratcheting up the punishment on him to slow him down by physically just trying to hurt him, which, I get it. That's old smash mouth football of the way it used to be. But you guys decided to change that way because of the damage that it was doing to the players long term. Why, if Alex Smith or Ryan Tannehill or, well, not Teddy Bridgewater this year, but Russell Wilson or any other quarterback ran out of that pocket, right out of that pocket, it took that hit. Like, there would be flags flying and penalties going and medics coming in. I mean, you imagine, like, Alex Smith taking that hit, but he runs sometimes, like you forget because he's Alex Smith. But
Russell
he
Wilson.
never, like, right. Nobody ever hits them like that and gets away with it. No, it's just because Cam's huge and he's Superman. But it's just a celebration. It's not like I felt like when I was watching it, I just felt like telling the refs, like, that's not actually real. The Superman thing, like, you should actually throw flags now.
He's not really
like,
Superman.
He can't actually catch bullets, so throw a flag because somebody just rammed him. I mean, come on. So it was that was just terrible to watch. I mean,
it was awful to watch. Yeah. It's I could go on and on and on and on and on about that, but I agree. It's a huge double standard and it's wrong, and they've got to do something about it. But back to the fantasy football implications of what went on last night, and certainly don't mean to lessen or demean the concerns that we've raised here. But we are here to talk about, we're going to have some fun and talk about fantasy football. And first of all, Cam is so amazing. I mean, he is just so amazing, and hopefully he'll get some rest, and hopefully he'll come back and he'll be okay and can continue. Having Kelvin Benjamin back, wow.
Benjamin looked great.
He looked great. And
I've been on the Funches train. I've been on the Funches train for a while, and I was like, damn. I mean, it turns out that I actually was on the Benjamin train, too. I had no idea. I went and looked at my NFL 10s, and I was like, oh, hey, I have a bunch of he was cheap. So I was buying, apparently, in the off-season. So I looked. I was like, oh, I have a couple of Benjamin Cam stacks where I'm like, that's nice. I like that.
I have a couple. I've got Devin Funches all over the place. It was interesting. By the way, if you don't follow, I follow Nathan Jenke, who is one of the PFF guys, and who's just so great to tweet out snap counts for skill players. And he was letting us know how many snaps Kelvin Benjamin and Philly Brown, and you mentioned Devin Funches, and I've got a bunch of Devin Funches. And I took Philly Brown really late in Scotty Fishbowl, so I've got some interest in him too. Philly Brown out snapped Devin Funches, by only one snap, but still, that was kind of interesting to me.
Right. That was, and it's crazy that Corey Brown's just that kid stays. But, I was really hoping for more. But Funches is more of I'm hanging on to him in Dynasty hoping he turns into, because he's just big. I mean, he's not super amazing, but he's good. And most importantly, he's just two large receivers that, I mean, he could have gone tight end. And I'm hoping. But obviously this year, I'm just holding. I don't want to sell low. I might buy low if you could get him low after this, when it looks like Kelvin Benjamin's just going to be the backfield and it's not going to be Funches. I might buy low if I'm in Dynasty. If I'm in redraft, I'm not going anywhere near it. But I think eventually he'll. I mean, think about some of the receivers that have had last year that produced in that offense.
So you're not drafting
Devin Jr. was a thing.
You're not drafting Devin Funches in redraft?
You know what? I think I have him in a few. Dear Lord, I think I have him in the fishbowl.
Or were you talking about Philly Brown?
I'm talking about Funches. I have him in redraft that I bought earlier. But as far as for trading in redraft, I would be standing pat because you can't get any value out of him right now, and I wouldn't want to trade for him in a redraft in case he needs another year. Yeah. So, but in Dynasty, I may go out now if I'm a person. I'd be like, hey, I could trade. I mean, you could, after this weekend, you could probably get some value on some guys that are going to look good right now that may not look good later, and you get some value on them and trade them off for him.
Well, I'm not so sure C.J. Anderson doesn't fall into that category because I'm not sure he's going to be able. Yeah, I'm not sure how long he'll hold the value that he came out of this game with. Devin Funchess is interesting. I never bought the narrative that he was going to be a better option than Kelvin Benjamin, but I do think that as a as a guy who's possibly going to, and I think it'll be fairly even, maybe at least early on, between him and Ted Ginn. And Ted Ginn's not going to go away, as you saw last night. And Cam has a rapport.
I can't believe that those words were spoken aloud. Ted Ginn.
I know.
I can't believe it took him long enough, but he finally managed to catch a ball without going fetal.
Bitter Fins fan, that number 6 overall pick. Oh
my God. It still stands with me. And now he's finally catching. It only took years for him to catch a ball without going fetal. But
listen,
yeah,
Cam's the only guy who's been able to get him to do that.
I know. But it's just amazing that we're sitting here talking about Ted Ginn as Jr. as an actual legitimate receiver, and it's just my bias, people. That's what
I understand. I was the same way.
We're still mad about that. And the Dolphins take Ted Ginn Jr. Wait, we just took a kick returner with a broken leg. Woo! Yeah!
Hooray!
I love my Dolphins.
Oh my God, I'll never forget that. But I do think early on, I think that their production will be fairly similar, and I would expect, maybe toward the end of the season, somewhere maybe around week 10ish or so, that would be the point I would think Funchess might start to get, a little bit more. Excuse me, a little bit more than Ginn, but it's certainly a situation to keep an eye on. And the snap count, the wide receiver snap counts were quite curious. And of course, you can't talk about their receiving core without talking about Greg Olsen, who's just so good.
Right. I mean, I think that's part of the interesting thing that's going to happen with that team is I think they're just going to have a bunch of receivers. I think that Carolina is going to stay beastly for fantasy for a while, with maybe the question mark of their running backs. Because so I just traded my last dynasty share of Cameron Artis-Payne, so I imagine that Jonathan Stewart should go down in the next 3 weeks if my luck holds, because that's the way things work with my Cabot Cove curse. So if you have the ability to pick up Cameron Artis-Payne, you should probably do so, and my foul luck will be your beneficial improvement to your team. But I guess I am going to guess that they had Fozzie Whitaker still, who has one of the best names in football.
Crazy.
But
I don't have any Fozzie Whitaker. Yeah,
no.
I don't have any Fozzie Whitaker, but I do have some cap shares.
Yeah, no. So and frankly, that helps the passing. That helps that they're just going to have to pass. But I think they're going to be one of those teams where they're going to be for a while. And I'm curious. I imagine they take somebody next year in that draft to really come in, because if they're not that sold on Cameron Artis-Payne, then maybe they just go in and they get it.
Apparently not.
Back. I mean, next year's the draft. It's the one with all the football wonders. So all the running backs.
Of course, they still have Mike Talbert. You can't leave out, Mike Talbert. Fullback was the first. Of course, it was Denver's, but the fullback was the first rushing touchdown of the season.
Right. Yes. So I actually have Talbot shares somewhere, because in one of the best ball leagues, because obviously you can't start. Yeah. But yes, Mike Talbot is a fantastic fullback. So, and Denver did a great job. I was sad to see Virgil Green not do more.
Yeah, he got snaps though. That was the thing that I was. That was the thing
it
that I was
wasn't
looking
a great.
for.
It wasn't a great game for Denver passing.
No.
It makes you.
The Paxton Lynch era is going to come sooner rather than later. There's no question.
And this may be the time also to go in and buy your Denver players cheap. Because everyone's looking in DT. In the leagues I started in, I was like, actually Thomas Davis and Luke Kuechly outscored him last night for me. So, but that's one of the things to keep in mind when you're looking at, Denver did, C.J. Anderson looked great, and everyone's going to be down because that passing game is going to be probably down a little bit too because of the coaches, but they're also paying Carolina, even though they still don't have Josh Norman, that's a nasty defense in its own right. Everybody thinks about Denver's defense, and forgetting that Carolina's isn't exactly friendly. Like nobody's ever been like, "Hey, I love that Luke Kuechly," except for his own teammates when it comes to playing. Like as a quarterback, I imagine that quarterbacks have nightmares about him. So this would be a great time to come in and say you can get Demaryius Thomas cheaper. You can go in and
Demaryius Thomas looked good. I mean, what you got to see of him, he looks like he's got his mojo back. I'm a big fan, and I'm happy to see that. You mentioned Josh Norman, and I'm so glad you did, because first of all, I wish he'd just shut up, and B, obviously the Panthers defense missed him a lot more, certainly a lot more than I expected, and it showed in their run defense. It really did show in their run defense.
Well, that's where it becomes interesting, where you can sneak in and buy DT. Is like if somebody ends up looking at the bottom line. If you're in a serious league, you're not going to sneak anything in. But for the people playing it with more casual players, they're going to look at the bottom line on Demaryius Thomas last night, and they may start to get worried, or the bottom line on Virgil Green last night. And if you're not paying attention to the fact that, hey, Thomas Davis had a fantastic catch in that game. Thank you, Thomas Davis, because I have you. He had a really great catch. That was really nice for the. I'm pretty sure the Broncos weren't happy about it, and the defense really did have some effects on the passing game, and the running game was so strong. If somebody's not looking at any of that, they're just looking at Demaryius Thomas, like didn't get them the points they expected out of a stud receiver. This is the time when you could come in potentially. You're going to see some guys. I think you're going to see games right now where players are going to shine in these first few games that are going to later fade. And you could trade off one of those players and get yourself Thomas to a doubting owner who's concerned. Yeah. Now is the time to be the predator. So
now's the time to pull that okie doke.
Yep. So that's if I'm looking, I'm like, hey, oh man, Thomas only got you what? I mean, most leagues it's going to get 8 to 10 points this game. Oh, he only got you 10 points, and then you're going to see other games where you're going to see. One of the things I'm curious to see is Eli Rogers this weekend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how coverage will Josh Norman goes on Antonio Brown, right? So that should be fun to watch. But then Marcus Wheaton's hurt. Jesse James is a kid. And so does Eli Rogers, who's kind of replaced Sammy Coates, have a big game? And in that point, do you just sell Eli Rogers really high?
Yeah. But what other guys are you watching right now? What guys are you looking to snipe and maybe pick up on the cheap? Well,
right now, I mean, I think after this weekend, certain people are just going to become not cheap that I like. Vance McDonald was sneaky, and then he stopped being sneaky because everybody started figuring out he's the only person who can. Name awesome San Francisco 49ers wide receivers.
Torrey Smith.
That's literally the only name of the. It's like Quentin Patton's there. I mean,
I think Quentin Patton's going to end up leading the 49ers in.
Which is not.
Well, but it's going to happen because Torrey Smith's going to get the attention, and how much will they use.
It's not like the 49ers receiver core isn't exactly awe-inspiring. And I mean that in every sense.
Well, he's a local kid.
I do, but it's not, it's not awe-inspiring, which means that Vance McDonald may be getting quite a bit of work, considering that these are not. I mean, I've had Quentin Patton on and off in dynasty leagues, and I was one of unfortunately the DeAndre Smelter. I was on that train, and it crashed. But
I hope Vance McDonald goes off because it'll make my stupid prediction from his rookie season look a little bit better, because I had him as my number one rookie tight end because he looked pretty good in college, looked pretty polished, and he was going into a great situation. You thought what was a great situation and a good offense. They just moved on from Delaney Walker, who, of course, joined the Titans. And they did have Vernon Davis, but, they needed that other, tight
Right.
end, and it just yeah.
I think Vance McDonald's going to come out, and I think he's going to be very, very strong tight end for a receiving core that's definitely still a work in progress. I mean, obviously Garrett Selleck is still there,
Yeah.
and Blake Bell is kind of hanging out. But I think McDonald's the guy. The other tight end that the one that I've been really sneaking cheap, if I've had a few situations where my tight ends are broken, or I got caught. Lance Kendricks, not because he's awesome, because I mean Tyler Higbee's there and he'll eventually take over, but just again another receiving core where you got Case Keenum as the quarterback right now, with Mannion behind him and then Goff, and you've got a bunch of receivers with Kenny Britt is the best receiver you can list.
Listen, Kenny Britt's still in the league. Shout out to dude.
Yes, he is here for another season to crush and disappoint you. For everybody who has him, you know what's happening. You know what's going to happen. He's going to have 3 amazing games, and then he's either going to get injured or arrested or just disappear.
Listen, if you're putting your fantasy football team in Jeff Fisher's hands, except for their number 1 running back, who's Todd Gurley right now, you're in trouble.
Right. With the minute you're like, I really want to go with the Los Angeles. See, there I did it. Los Angeles Rams, as like for anything in offense that's not Todd Gurley. Yeah, it's. But I think Kendricks will end up getting. You're like desperate for a tight end. He could be a fill-in one week because he's there. It's this weekend. I think I'm really interested to see when you see the full Detroit offense come out.
Mm-hmm.
Is it Golden Tate or Marvin Jones who takes the number 1 spot? I could see them flip-flopping week to week on coverage, but
listen, I've got some shares of Anquan Bolden.
Oh yeah, and Bolden's there. Ebron's now healthy again, allegedly. So that game could come out and be like that game could either be a trap game where it's like 3-9 and they're like, haha, screw your fantasy team, or that game could be amazingly just everybody's fantasy teams go off and I don't see a middle game. I see it just one way or the other.
Well, the Colts defense shoots up pretty badly, so you would think that the Lions, Yeah,
I mean, neither defense is like that. That seems like one of those games, like I said, where it would be a trap, and you're like, how the heck did you end up with 3-9? Really? Or like it could just be fantasy heaven. And I'm banking. I've been grabbing and different players in that game because I'm going to go with, hey, maybe it'll turn into fantasy heaven, and there'll be all kinds of I'm a little worried about Luck's shoulder still.
Yeah, I am too. He's back on. He's back. I did a 32-teamer where you could only draft players in the division. Of course, I represented the Titans. Excuse me, and I got sniped on Nuke and Lamar Miller. I got sniped on so many people, but I drafted 4th. And by the time it got to me, my first pick was Andrew Luck, and that was before he made his appearance back on the injury report, and I saw that, and I was like, FML, #FML.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, I have him on one of my more injury-prone teams. Although all my teams are pretty much injury-prone, but I worry, but I would love to see that game, to see everybody just go. Yeah. I think this week, and just this week, maybe like the next 3 weeks, Brandon LaFell will be an interesting play. And it's solely for a few weeks, because Brandon LaFell is not, I mean, there's a reason why Brandon LaFell has never been, the name has never been spoken with all.
He was relevant for a while with the Patriots because of Tom Brady.
Right, but he's always been, he's not amazing, but Tyler Boyd is still learning, and I could see either LaFell or maybe Croft is somewhat healthy, and Eifert, of course, is still injured as usual. So I could see that. I
stayed away from him.
Yeah, I unfortunately have him in one of my dynasty leagues. So, but I also have Gary Barnage there because I love me Gary Barnidge, but
I do too. I have some shares of him.
Yeah, with him, I would say he's the guy that you let him play a couple of weeks, go off, and then if you can trade him,
yeah,
he may be the time to trade him. Not because he's not doing his thing, but because you got Josh Gordon coming back. You now have a bunch of receivers that are good receivers that are sitting there. Corey Coleman.
I've got some Terrell Pryor shares.
Yeah, Terrell Pryor, I love that guy. So there's definitely some really good receivers there, which is going to change how much Gary Barnidge gets used potentially.
Yeah.
Although that catch last year with his legs was outstanding.
Yeah.
The team I'm mostly avoiding is, of course, my Dolphins. My Dolphins, who exist to crush my dreams every year.
Yeah, I'm talking with Lisa London, by the way. Great fantasy football follow. Just a great person.
Thank you.
And I think give her a chance to really introduce herself and shout out where you can find her. We'll do that before we let her go. And we are going to talk about the Dolphins. But before we get there, I want to ask you, because I'm curious, how do you feel about Tampa Bay's backfield, and which guy are you buying into?
I actually like Doug Martin mostly for this year, but the person I own and the person I spent most of last year, he's pretty much lives in my grind. I write grinders and gambles, which is basically when you're looking for when you have very deep leagues and shallow, your waivers are difficult. Guys who can come in and get you some points, and when you're desperate. And one of my just perpetual grinders on there is Charles Sims in a PPR.
Mm-hmm.
And I love him because he produces even though, okay, Doug Martin's there, okay, this person's there, okay, Winston's running it, but Charles Sims still gets you some points. And at the end of the day, I think that he's the guy who is going to be price value-wise easier to obtain. I mean, I love Doug Martin to play in dailies, depending on who they're playing. I didn't really like his price, and I don't own many shares in MFL 10s. I don't have any dynasty shares. He just costs too much for me. But I think for at least the next season or so, he should be a good running back too with some one upside. I just think that you can get Charles Sims has gone up over this off season. I've really seen his value go up from where he was just hanging out on the wire to he's owned now everywhere. But if you can get him cheap, he's a great guy to get you. I need some points. I'm going to flex him because I need to put in a patch here. But his value may have gone over. It's going to be interesting to see how that shakes out. If Doug Martin comes in, has a big game, and Charles Sims doesn't produce that much, you could probably go in and get a cheap buy on him, much cheaper than you're going to get Doug Martin.
Charles Sims is the only Tampa Bay share I own. I might maybe have some. No. I do. I have one more. Let me correct myself. Who is the guy who's going to take ASJ's place?
You mean the other tight end?
The tight end, yes.
Cameron Brate?
Yeah, I have one of him.
Yeah.
So those are the only two and it's just the way it fell out because I love Mike Evans, but he was going pretty high, and I'm just not as in love with Vincent Jackson, who I think is great. And so just the way it shook out, those were the only. I have one share of Charles Sims and one of the other tight end, and so I'm kind of curious to see how their offense goes and how their running back and tight end situation. So all right, Finn's time. I don't want to keep you too long, but I got to ask you about your Finns and what's going on with them. And of course we beat this horse to death, but I'm going to beat it some more. Ryan Tannehill. It's the year for him, isn't it? I mean, he's got to do it this year, right?
I'm sorry. Every time it's just my Dolphins. Look, my Dolphins exist to just. I know that there was a time where they actually won Super Bowls because I've heard the stories of way back when. But for my entire pretty much existence, remember I got to suffer through. Hey, we made it to the Super Bowl and then we lost. And then from there we went to Super Bowl. The only way that we get to see the Super Bowl is by hosting it. So we don't actually get to play in it. We just get to host it every once in a while because we have a nice stadium. So it's pretty bad. He's our quote franchise quarterback, and I think that even if he doesn't do it this year, he may stick around anyways because I don't know that who are they going to go take unless they can trade for somebody. Unless they do, it'll be we'll end up with Jay Cutler with like a ridiculous contract because that's what the Dolphins do. Here, let's give like $50 million to Jay Cutler. That's my Dolphins right there. Is can we overpay for somebody who's probably going to be injured and underperform? Is that an option? Wait, we have Drew Brees or Dante Culpepper. Let's go with Dante Culpepper. That Brees kid doesn't look like he's any good.
Oh man, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, that's what the Dolphins do. So it's one of those things where it should be his year. That he has to make it or break it, and he's got Adam Gase there. So you hope that of course Jordan Cameron, as somebody who's overpaid and our standard Dolphin pick is doing so much at tight end. I'm sure all the other.
I think I've got a share of Jordan Cameron. I wasn't happy about it, but I think I've got it.
I think I drafted Deion Sims in multiple leagues. Like I just assumed that either Jordan Cameron would get benched or injured. Like I figured he would go like get a drink of water and pull a hammy. So I was just like, I'll just draft Deion Sims now, and eventually he may score me points over the year. I don't think that whatever happens with the Dolphins, I don't think it's happening this week. This week I expect, let's see, Pouncey's most likely out, so we have our center is going to be some kid that was a guard and then has been on practice squads for like a couple of years, and now he's going to play center for the first time against Seattle. Nothing could possibly go wrong with that idea. I'm sure that's going to go swimmingly well. So if Ryan Tannehill lives through this game, then we'll see how he does afterwards. Because if he doesn't have a setter, that's going to be ugly. I expect at least one penalty with something done wrong on a snap. I mean, the kid's first time ever playing an NFL center, and you got to play against Seattle. That's just brutal. Like, hi, welcome to the NFL. Have you enjoyed those practice squads? Yeah, now you're gonna have you have Michael Bennett. So, and then on top of that, Devontae Parker has underperformed, and now he may not play. Like, who knows what's going on with that? And then who knows who's replacing him? I mean, I assume from the preseason it looks like Kenny Stills is getting the love, which okay.
He looked pretty good. I mean, I was a little on the fence about that trade and where he fit in there, but I got to say, I have not drafted him. I didn't pick him up any, but I thought about it.
Right. Yeah. No. He's looked pretty good. Last year, I had Matthews, who's now on your Titans. I still have Matthews. Yeah.
Oh, I love him.
That's right. We have our bet. We have our Obby bet.
We sure do.
we've got our Obby bet on whether or not Matthews or Sharp is the lead. But one of the pickups I just made in one of my leagues is somebody had dropped Carew because the coach is just like, you still have work to do. But I grabbed him to see what happens. Parker's having issues. Obviously, he's not necessarily a replacement for Parker, but I grabbed him for long term because those receivers, who knows what's going to happen there. Let's see how he develops. He's not somebody I would grab in a redraft. But in Dynasty, if somebody's like, I'm out because this kid may end up on the practice squad, then he might be a nice grab. Waldman loved him or liked him. For anybody who reads the RSP, he got good reviews.
Trust Matt Waldman. Promises.
Yes. Matt Waldman is the RSP is my Bible of drafting. So I've seen him get thrown out in a couple of leagues. So I was like, hey, thank you for that. I'll take him. I'll stick him on my dumpster fire team at bench and let my team develop.
So I got to ask you, since we can't talk about the wideouts without Justin Hunter reunited, and it feels so good with Sean Jefferson. Is he going to have a role or not?
So first of all, I want to know how you got Rashard Matthews and we got Justin Hunter. Like, how did that? Thank you, Miami Dolphins. How did that? You know what we should do? Let's
a little bit of sympathy. I mean, that was definitely the football gods took pity on the Tennessee Titans. We got the better end of that deal.
Like how? Like as a Dolphins front office, you're like, you know what? That Rashard Matthews kid keeps catching the ball. Let's go send him over to Tennessee and take Justin Hunter. That would be awesome. I can't possibly see how that'll. Yeah, no, that's. I think that. I mean, frankly, with the way that the Dolphins wide receiver core goes, who knows what's going to happen? Justin Hunter. I mean, he's not. I don't think anything happens. Obviously, this week, he's still got to learn everything, but learn the system that won't actually be effective. But after that, I mean, he may. I've never actually. I don't think I've ever owned any Justin Hunter shares. I may have once a very long time ago, and I certainly haven't in the last couple of years. Yeah. And I'm not really looking to buy. I mean, going to the Dolphins, I as a general rule, don't own Dolphins because as much as I love my Dolphins, they haven't. Yeah. I mean, I've gone through. It's now been decades. I mean, pretty much since Schuler's been gone, that they haven't been like somehow a hot mess in some way. Like they literally exist to crush my hopes and dreams every year. They start showing a little flash, they do something cool, and then they just fall apart. That's the Dolphin way, and on top of that, they overpay for people that disappoint you, or they get rid of somebody, and then that person goes on to be relevant. So I'm looking at you, Chris Hogan, 7-Eleven. You know how much I love Chris Hogan. So watch him turn out to be. That's my guess for the guy that nobody saw coming, Chris Hogan. Yeah.
One more thing, the running back situation. How much does Arian Foster have left? And is there any? Last year, I bought so heavily into Jay Ajayi, and wow, that was a mistake. Is there any hope for the Ajayi truthers?
Honestly, I'm so happy that any attempts to get him last year were just shot down in my dynasty leagues. Here's the problem with the Dolphins' backfield. Even if you are good, for some reason you never get used until you go to another team.
Well, Lamar Miller, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar Miller going to Houston is going to be great for him. I know it's a different coordinator. We changed coaches. It's like, how do we continue? I mean, we've even changed owners, and we still continue to do the same things. But under the previous one, we actually at least had running backs that had value. Lately, it seems like, I mean, first of all, Arian Foster, I wouldn't be surprised if Carlos Williams been signed yet. I wouldn't be surprised if Carlos Williams becomes the running back. That really wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Arian Foster.
The Jets are looking at him too. You better.
Yeah, I know, because yes, they lost Kerry Robinson. So, but I would assume that the Dolphins would love to bring him in because they were pretty much trying to pay for Chris Johnson. They were like, we don't care how old you are. They really were just trying, they were just throwing money out, here's money, please come and play with us. And then they ended up with Arian Foster. So Arian Foster hasn't made it through a full season, and I mean, he makes Jonathan Stewart look like a solid running back who never gets injured.
He was going so high in fantasy drafts. I was like, I just can't.
No, I mean, everyone forgets that he's got the back. I mean, once you have back problems, man, I have no idea how he even gets up and runs at this point, because that's gotta hurt. That guy's gotta wake up in just crazy pain. So I assume he's gonna have some great games, and then I assume he's gonna get injured, and then I assume, like I said, we're gonna have to bring somebody in. I'm surprised that we haven't joined the Carlos Williams bidding force yet. Because I know the
like Carlos Williams. It's interesting. really
off
pulling
season.
for him, and pulling for him and hope. But here's the thing about Arian Foster. When you look at Lamar Miller, you mentioned that situation. When you look at the difference between what the Texans did and what the Dolphins do, I think it's ridiculous to think that Arian Foster's numbers are going to match what we saw, because the Dolphins just don't use their running backs that way.
That's really what, and it's like that's bothered me over. I mean, it's you have. I mean, at one point you had Lamar, you had talented backs sitting there, and you're not using them. And it's why are you not using? It doesn't make sense that our focus is the passing game. Maybe Tannehill would be doing better if he had the running game to take some pressure off of him. On top of that, we've had so many issues and turnovers and receivers and what's going on there. It's been a really long time since the Dolphins have had a solid franchise receiver that stayed with them. That's been like their guy. And we really don't have that. We have turnover. We lose receivers. We lose players to other teams. We don't seem to instill the same type of loyalty or spend the type of money on contracts to get those kind of guys anymore that we used to have. I mean, and that just seems to be the way it goes. And I said, as far as Dolphin, if it's cheap, I'm buying a Dolphin receiver. Anything more than bargain basement prices, and they're yours. I don't know if I own it. I own very few Parker shares. And I tried to trade for him, I think, in a couple leagues last year, and his price was so high. I was like, really? Yeah. Like, he's a Dolphin, right? And Ryan Tannehill. I mean, when I wear my Ryan Tannehill shirt out, and people look at me, I'm like, no, it's a great jersey. It's just, every once in a while when I park my car, I miss the parking space I was aiming for and overshoot and park in the other one. Like, I'll be throwing something in the grocery basket, and I just miss. And I'm just like, it's a jersey. It's a jersey. Sorry. I didn't mean to hit you with that box of cereal. Sorry about that. So, that's Ryan Tannehill.
This is why I've missed you so much. It's always so much fun. And we had a great time on the Going for Two live auction. Beers were consumed. I'm actually going to have to go back and rewind and see how many bets I did make and exactly what the terms.
We made quite a few bets. Like the next morning, I was like, oh, God, why would we drink and draft? That was a terrible idea. I believe I was drinking
I looked at
scotch.
my team, though. I like my team, but I did make quite a few bets,
Yeah, my team looked like I was drinking. But yes, we have the Avi bet for those who didn't catch it. We have a bet 1 week's Avi's on Twitter on who will be the top receiver in the Titans, whether it's Rashard Matthews or Tajay Sharp.
Tabe. It works either way for me, though. See, it's a win-win because I own probably way too many shares of Tajay Sharp, and I also have some Rashard Matthews too, and I love him. I think that it's a win-win either way for me. And it's so funny because I actually made a bet with Andy Carlson as well for the Titans-Vikings game. Excuse me. Over the weekend, and if the Vikings do win, I have to rock a Coach Zimmer avatar for an entire day, and that's fine. So I can't let you get out of here, and I've kept you too long. I'm so sorry, but I can't let you get out of here without talking about your defense, which, as good as it was, man, it could actually be better this year. I love the Mario Williams pickup. You guys have a guy that I followed throughout his career, former Titan, Jason Jones. I love that pickup as well.
Yes. And, it looks good. I mean, they moved Wake, so Wake won't be in on all of the downs, but he'll be coming in doing a pass rush, which will keep him hopefully healthy. And that is the one thing in the Miami Dolphins that I have been picking up is their defense or their defensive players. And I think that we do right.
Yeah.
We can't pass the ball, but we can crush the other quarterback. So I like that. I think that's going to be.
Don't head hunt. Crushing's okay. Head hunt.
I think our division is going to be really interesting this year with some of the offensive lines versus some of these defenses. There's going to be some really ugly games involving stretchers, but I do like what they've done there.
I had forgotten that you guys picked up Kiko Alonso too. Is he finally healthy? Give us a scouting update on him.
Oh God, I haven't actually checked the latest one on him.
He was a fantastic college player. He's never been able to stay healthy.
Right.
Obviously, the subject of that infamous trade with LaShawn McCoy and what went down there. I like him. I'm really, really, really pulling for him this year. I hope he stays healthy.
Yeah. Now he's still doing the rehab, and I don't think he's going to be in for anytime soon. I don't know if I don't think they've put him on PUP yet. He's still got that knee, so hopefully he comes back. And
yeah, I hope so too.
And he makes it back into season. I mean, that's just knees always. I hate when I see those knees. It's tough.
He's had 2 ACLs already. And I think he had one in college. So it's it's crazy. I've kept you too long. Did we talk about all your sleepers from the weekend?
I think we covered at least some of them.
Okay. All right. Great. Tell everybody else. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. I would say, and anybody who wants to take a look, I write grinders and gambles for Fantasy Sharks as well as a couple of other articles. And I am on Twitter at LeeDogLaw.
And you should follow her. She's great. Lisa, thanks again.
You totally should follow me.
We cannot let so much time go between today and the next time that you're on. It's embarrassing how long it's been. But I had so much fun, and thanks again for joining me.
Yes, please. Thank you for having me.
All right. Have a great day.
You too. Take care.